have direct offers around funding. So we have a MedTech accelerator, which is for innovators from the Eastern region. We focus that around clinical entrepreneurs. So if you are a clinician and are working closely with clinicians and have an innovation, it's very much early stage, and you want some proof of concept funding, you can receive up to £125,000 proof of concept funding through the MedTech accelerator, and there's information on our stand about that. If you're seeking and or thinking that you're going to need larger sums of money, and some of the biotech diagnostic products clearly need quite a sizable sum in terms of investment, you might be interested to know that we run SBRI Healthcare, which is a national innovation programme where you can secure up to £1 million of innovation. £1 million of investment to support the development of your innovation. SBRI allows companies to keep their IP and isn't a match funding programme, so it's particularly popular with SMEs, and we focus the way in which it works to support the co-development of solutions from SMEs to address needs that the NHS is currently struggling with. The way in which we work primarily with companies, as I say, is to offer a range of support along what we describe as an innovation pathway, but we run a series of readiness events, learning opportunities effectively, pretty much one a month, which set out some of the challenges, some of the intricacies of the NHS requirements, and they're free to anyone to attend. The next one is in Cambridge on the 2nd of October, but we have them pretty much every month, and colleagues at those events will set out for you a little bit more detail around different parts of the NHS structure and expectations, and you can also book one-to-one surgeries, so if you've got specific bespoke needs, or you want to connect into particular parts of the system, then through the surgery offer we can walk you through some of the challenges you might be having and connect you in. And then we also have a range of information leaflets. We've got some online tools that again help people to navigate their way through the NHS. Fundamentally, and I think our people in the room have already brought products to market, have got products that they're trying to sell into the NHS. Barry has, I know. Others, yeah. So it won't be any surprise for you guys to know it's really difficult. It's really difficult, and I don't want to put people off, but fundamentally people talk about the NHS as one entity. It's hundreds of different business units and different decision-making processes, each of which have different drivers and different needs around what products and innovations they're wanting to support. So inevitably, making sure that you have the very best evidence, be it clinical, be it health economic, be it the user experience, will be vital. And certainly if you're thinking of taking your products into the NHS, you will need to have a really strong case around each of those pieces of the puzzle, depending on where you're impacting. Clearly, if you're offering an IT system that's helping manage the flow of patients, then your clinical evidence won't be required. But if you're wanting to provide a tool to support someone in surgery, then clearly understanding what impact it would have in terms of the clinical would be critical. So I would definitely encourage people to think very carefully about the evidence that they have. Increasingly, the NHS is looking for real use case evidence as well, so not just lab-based or data search, or even, to be honest, just even peer-reviewed publications now are not sufficient to be able to support adoption. You need real use case examples and tested environments, and I guess that's where the academic health science networks come into their own. We are Eastern's HSN, but there are 14 other partners across the whole of England, and we can connect you with those, and we can help you find those test environments. So if you need to have a specialist connection to oncology, then through our partners in London, it might be that we can link you up to the Royal Marsden and the leading centres in Manchester and so on, if that's something that would be of value to you. Equally, we can help you understand the needs in the NHS. It's very difficult to work out sometimes. We think very easily about, well, my product's going to save people's lives or it's going to help them manage their conditions. But sometimes it's not very clear in the NHS who would actually buy that product, because the purchasers sit in a variety of different situations. So the hospitals will buy some elements of activity, the primary care, the GPs buy others, and understanding where your purchaser is really vital. So very definitely you need to marshal your evidence. Your evidence needs to match both economic and health considerations. You definitely need to understand who your buyer is and understand who the beneficiary is. So sometimes the beneficiary is not the purchaser, but having some connection between the purchaser and the beneficiary is something, again, the academic health science networks can support you to do. And then finally, there is a little bit of serendipity, a little bit of direction of travel. The political wind often drives innovations along certain agendas and certain areas of focus. We've got a drive at the moment across the breadth on atrial fibrillation and trying to detect early detection around strokes. People who've got solutions around AF detections and or the management of stroke. I'm not saying it's an easy path, but we're significantly on the hunt for you. So definitely, there's a prevailing wind around AF detection. There's also very strong focus around mental health solutions. So you'll have seen in the media, there's a lot of challenge in the mental health system. Like the rest of the NHS, they're struggling in terms of volume of need and then a mismatch of being able to service those. So ways in which we can support people with mental health conditions is something that we're very, very strongly hunting for and looking for at the moment. A local company, only last week I saw ASO, who have received funding in one of the in the SBRI programme, received I think it's about £18 million of investment, and they've got an online CBT offer which has gone very effectively in the NHS because it can support people to self-manage in a reputable and thorough and appropriately evidenced way, and certainly solutions like that are very popular at the moment in the NHS. I'm very happy to take questions and or pick up issues from the audience if that's the best way to use our last 5 minutes. Like so.
In terms of investments, so what are you looking for in investment is coming into the UK and the licence? Would you be an organisation that would help coming from outside the UK if they wanted to try and get into the NHS?
Yeah, potentially.
Yeah.
We do have support networks, and we have seen and supported some of those conversations. I'd want to be clear that their offer is something of value in terms of the NHS, not just a me too, if you like, because understandably we're keen to support British businesses, and if it's a me too, I guess I'm going to say fuck it, but we're here. If you've got me something really innovative and or the company is relocating, wanting to build its manufacturing over here or something, then obviously my ears prick up a little more. But yes, in principle, absolutely we can, and we can certainly, those companies are very welcome to attend and or be involved in our learning series and the offers that we have available to help navigate and understand how the NHS works. So we have worked with companies like Proteus who were new into the market and helped them to work their way through the system as well. There are other questions or comments?
Lisa Clark from the Sovereign Institute. Sometimes we have difficulty with looking at this and unmet need for some of our scientists' ideas and things. Is that something that your organisation can help with? Because one of our scientists has got an idea for a test that we can go. But I haven't been able to get any traction from anybody within the NHS to actually find out if they
If that's something useful. Yes, and I think, if I'm honest, we struggle to try and help the NHS identify its needs as well, but we do work to address that. So absolutely we'd be trying, and I guess what we can do is connect you into different health teams and talk to the various teams of people that would be interested or potentially interested in solutions in that area that might be able to give you some feedback around need. Need is a really difficult space because to a large extent it's how long is a piece of string. We can all identify, wouldn't it be great if we had instant solutions for a huge number of challenges that we're struggling with, but affordability and the sort of matching of demand and affordability is one of the challenges we have. We are driven at the moment within the NHS for solutions that support self-care, anything that enables people to improve self-care, improve their own management of conditions, improve the prevention agenda. So that's a hugely overarching need and driving force across pretty well every aspect of the NHS, and everyone will have heard we're keen to keep people out of hospitals. So if we can do things that enable people to self-manage and or mean that their interaction with the hospital is a short burst, limited arrangement, then that's something that we're always interested in. So, but yes, let's talk further in terms of the specifics around leaky gut. That'd be good. Are there any other thoughts or?
You mentioned that you can facilitate the process of trials, clinical trials, and tests and so on to support the evidence base. Would that be something that the end user, whether it's a hospital or environment, would pay for?
Yeah, it's a mixed situation around clinical trials. So the National Institute of Health Research funds clinical trials, not all of them, some of them. So you have to be able to show a value in terms of the NHS is going to see a real dividend from it. There are other organisations that will part fund, so you might get some part funding through either commercial sponsors and or some of the clinical leads have networks into the charity sectors, and Cancer Research UK funds an awful lot of clinical trials, as do many of the big medical charities. So there are funders out there, but if you are if you're, imagine a commercial entity, so the pharmaceutical companies, they significantly pay for the trials of their products, and the NHS would expect that continued. You will still potentially have to pay for, but there are ways in which you can secure some funding, depending on the value proposition from the NHS's point of view. Were there other thoughts or comments? Folks who have been working with the NHS, I don't know if you want to offer any reflections on what worked for you, or what you found the barriers were difficult, that you didn't expect, or where you found ways through. I don't know. You're not there yet. Okay, so you're still developing. Okay.
I would say you've got to be very cognitive of vested interests in the NHS. Consultant private practice is a no-go area. Obvious things like that.
Mr. Cirillo.
That can trip you up very easily. And also I think you have to fit, whatever you're doing, it has to fit in with existing care pathways. So it doesn't increase labour in any way whatsoever. Indeed, if it reduces the number of patient interactions in a care pathway, you've got quite a strong case.
Yes, I think there are some disruptors that are radically altering the care pathways, but I think you're right, Barry, that so a care pathway is fundamentally the way in which a condition is managed at each stage of the healthcare interaction. So, you might get diagnosed, so you might have a GP appointment, the GP refers you to perhaps a consultant who will undertake a test and do a diagnosis. That consultant will say, right, we need to do X, Y, and Z in terms of a procedure, and you'll get referred through the next step of the process in order to have the procedure, and then you might end up back at primary care with the GP checking that your progress against the procedure. So, and there's all sorts of interactions that have gone on in that sequence around the care pathway. If you're suddenly saying, and I've got a company who've got a radically different solution for diabetic retinopathy, which is a particularly costly condition within the NHS. Current treatment is laser treatment or injections into the eye, neither of which are particularly pleasant for the patient. This company have a light therapy solution that you put into, effectively you wear a mask in bed overnight, and it has a very low ambient light, doesn't disturb your sleep, and the evidence shows that it stops the deterioration of diabetic retinopathy. They are completely transforming the pathway, because current pathway says you go into theatre and you have your injections or you have your laser treatment, and obviously the light therapy solution will sit in primary care, and we are working with them to try and make sure that we can test the new way of delivering that service. But you're right, Barry, understanding how the various pieces of the service offer link together, and whether your product is going to radically alter that sequence does impact on its adoptability, if you like. So having an understanding of that is important to how rapidly we can adopt it. I'm conscious, do we need to have a... We're all right for time, brilliant, that's fine. Did folks want to come in, or you're all right? I'm conscious it's chilly out there. So is there anything that we haven't covered that you thought we would pick up on or expecting to know about? I can tell you more about the funding opportunities that we have for innovations. And Mark, my colleague, is flagging up that the series of learning events that I mentioned. So we have a series of events. Our next one is on the 2nd of October, and then subsequently at the beginning of each month, where we set out in more detail some of the pieces of the NHS decision-making processes. So the one in October is looking at tariffs and payment systems, so understanding the money flow, so that you can understand who would actually buy your product or service. But we also will be having in the new year some learning sessions on the procurement process. Procurement within the NHS is regulated by European rules at the moment. Obviously things may change, but fundamentally whatever we do end up with has to be an open and transparent system, and we have to make sure that we're treating people equally, and so therefore it does have a measure of process which can be quite cumbersome. So understanding what the expectations of the procurement process are, what evidence you're going to have to supply in terms of information, is part of what we'll be addressing in our sessions in the new year. We do have, if you leave this session thinking I'd really like to pick up issues or discuss ones, we have a number of slots. We've got some colleagues, we've got a stand up on the first floor, I think it is. And obviously we've got any of the literature that I've referenced, but equally if you wanted to have a little bit of time to set out what you're working on and what help you think we might be able to offer you today, we've got colleagues here who can sit down with you and go through where you're at and bring some direct assistance today, but equally by all means come and join us at any of the events. And if you go to our website, so ehsn.org, you'll find all the materials that I've referenced that are available for download. You'll also find web kits which take you through how to access different pieces of the offer, and you'll also find a range of different support in terms of your access to finance and various other activities that we've run. So please do feel free to log into ehsn.org. Okay, that was everything. Thank you very much.